Now that NBA free agency has been underway for a few weeks, we've been able to see how some of the major pieces have fallen into place. We've seen the teams that have been very proactive, the teams that have been reactive, the teams that haven't been active at all. And I think it's okay at this point in time to take a look and determine who have been some of the bigger winners and losers of this NBA free agency and offseason period so far. Start off with the positive and let's look at some of the winners of this free agency and offseason period in the NBA. Got to start off with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got their hometown hero to come back home. You get the best player in the game and you don't have to give up anything to get him except a bunch of money. And you look at it and you bring him in. You've already got Kyrie Irving in the fold. You've got the last two #1 overall picks and Anthony Bennett and Andrew Wiggins. You know, they have the potential flexibility to be able to pull off a deal, maybe to get a Kevin Love. But even if they don't, they're already winners just for bringing LeBron James back home. It instantly makes them relevant, and it instantly, in a lot of people's minds, makes them contenders in the Eastern Conference. You have to love what the Cleveland Cavaliers were able to accomplish this offseason. I look at my Chicago Bulls, and I've really liked what they've done in this offseason. Being able to sign Gasol in free agency, I think he's a great compliment at the power forward to Joakim Noah at the 5. What I really like about the deal is it's not really restrictive from a salary cap perspective. I think they got a bit of a bargain, frankly, and it's also not something that they're going to be tied to long term. You've got a guy with 2 or 3 really good years maybe left in the NBA, and that's all the length of the contract. But I really love what he brings to the team. More height and length down low and some low post scoring punch that the Bulls have desperately lacked for years. They've been able to go and get Mirotic to agree to finally come stateside. Here's a stretch 4 that in some bigger lineups you could even play at the 3. But he brings you some offensive firepower out of your front court. He brings you some ball handling and definitely brings you the shooting that the Bulls, again, were desperately lacking for several seasons now. You know, the re-signing of Kirk Hinrich, bringing in Aaron Brooks to kind of be that third point guard. The Bulls are incredibly deep. And then to top it all off, they amnestied Carlos Boozer finally, thank God. Big-time winners across the board for the Chicago Bulls, in my opinion. I look at the Dallas Mavericks, too, being able to weaken in-state rival, a conference rival in the Houston Rockets by taking one of their players and improving your team like they did with Chandler Parsons. You know, you got to love that move. The offseason trade for Tyson Chandler, bringing in Rashard Lewis, you know, a guy with championship and playoff experience, bringing him into the fold as a role player where you won't expect too much out of him. I've liked this offseason for the Dallas Mavericks as I have for the Charlotte Hornets. Being able to go out and sign Lance Stevenson in free agency, Marvin Williams in free agency, a couple of other moves they've made this offseason. You look at the Charlotte Hornets, and what I really like about them is the fact that not only do I feel they improved their team this offseason, but they've also left themselves a lot of financial flexibility. They didn't give out ridiculously bad contracts, other than if they would have actually gotten Gordon Hayward, then maybe that would have been one. They are in a situation where they're going to have a lot of available salary cap space the next couple of seasons while having some nice pieces in the fold. I really like what Michael Jordan and his front office have done in Charlotte this offseason, and I think that makes some winners as well. With every winner, there's got to be a loser, and I think there have definitely been some losers in this whole NBA offseason and free agency period. Now, first, I'll go to the Miami Heat. Now, anytime you lose the best player in the world, you come out a loser, no matter how anybody tries to spin it. I will at least give Pat Riley a lot of credit. He didn't throw in the towel. He didn't concede. He didn't blow the whole thing up. He's done a nice job of salvaging the fact that he lost LeBron in the offseason to Cleveland. You know, you re-sign Bosh, you re-sign Wade, you bring in Luol Deng and Josh McRoberts and Danny Granger. You re-sign a couple of your other pieces off of championship teams. You know, the Miami Heat have done a good job of, you know, stopping the bleeding. But at the end of the day, they did still lose LeBron James, and that makes them losers. The Los Angeles Lakers, there really were no major players acquired. They missed out on all the big-time free agents, namely Carmelo Anthony. You also look at this team, too. They overpaid to retain guys like Jordan Hill and Nick Young. And the biggest thing of all, they still don't have a coach. Would seem to be something important to address. How can you even go into an offseason of trying to get players in the fold if you don't even have a coach? You don't even know what scheme you want to run. You don't even want to know what type of system you want to run before you figure out what players you may or may not want to bring into the fold. Have not liked what the Lakers have done this offseason at all. Indiana Pacers as well. You look at this team that's been on the cusp the past couple of seasons, back-to-back trips to the Eastern Conference Finals. Then you lose a potential future All-Star in Lance Stevenson, who brought good and bad to the table, no question about it. But there definitely isn't a better replacement on hand. And when you lose a player like Lance Stevenson, and you really, I don't think, got any better in return, and you see other teams making moves in the Eastern Conference, whether it's the Bulls or the Hornets or the Wizards or so on and so forth. It seemed like the Indiana Pacers, regressed instead of progressing as a team and as an organization. And I think that kind of makes them losers as well. But my biggest losers of this offseason have to be the Houston Rockets. And I'm sorry to all the Houston fans that seem to get pissed off at me for telling the truth. Daryl Morey is a moron. Plain and simple. Now, I understand he swung for the fences this offseason. But by God, he struck out big fucking time, no matter how much spin you want to put on this, no matter how much you want to twist and turn it. The bottom line is the guy swung for the fences and he fucking struck out, period. He lost out on both Melo and Bosch in free agency, which should be an indication if these two guys didn't want to come to you, then what makes you think that down the road a third big-time free agent is going to want to come to you? I'm just saying. Really think about this for a second. They lose Chandler Parsons for nothing to the Dallas Mavericks, and all the while they could have totally prevented that by sitting there and picking up his option for this upcoming season and then taking their chances after next season, with him as an unrestricted free agent. You trade away Asik, and I'm sorry, Rockets fans, you really traded Asik for basically nothing. You traded Jeremy Lin for basically fucking nothing. A team that sat there and has only gotten to the first round of the playoffs the past 2 seasons is now trying to spin it, and their fan base is trying to spin it, that this was a productive, successful offseason. How is it productive and successful when you instantly got worse in the offseason? And I don't really see where you got a lot of flexibility to be able to really get yourself better long-term to where you can become a championship contending team. The bottom line is your GM swung for the fences and he fucking missed big. Ding dong, dumb dicks. When you lose your third best player and you don't really replace him, you trade away other pieces and you really don't get anything in return, that makes you a loser, and that makes you the biggest loser of the NBA free agency and offseason period. And certainly there were other winners and other losers, but these were the winners and losers that ultimately stood out the most to me. But I want to hear from you. Who do you think have been the biggest winners so far in this NBA offseason and free agency period? Who do you think of the biggest losers have been and why? I want to hear from you. Let me know down in the comments section.